All right. Welcome everyone back to the Bliss and Thrive podcast. Carys Anderson-Jones here, your host. And today I'm joined by the lovely Monica Frederick. And she is going to tell us all about who she is, what she does, and welcome to the show, Monica.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so, my journey started out, I'll just kind of start from the beginning, I guess. So when I was younger and I made my first solo venture out past high school and college and all of that good stuff, I thought that the American dream for me was like being able to have a career and have benefits and have a retirement and then, check all of these little boxes off of my list, right? And so I had been, ever since from like 19 to now, I had been just completely obsessed about having a career. So I went full force in. I worked way more than I should. Every decision I made was for the company that I was working for, and they're great. However, I didn't know how to live my life on my own terms. And after a while, I kept getting promotions, and I'm like, this is great. I'm on the fast track to success. Like, this is what all the people in the success books talk about. Like, this is what I should be doing, right? And so again, I kept going on and going on, and I never really kind of lived my life for myself. And so I'd say probably a few promotions in, I continue to work really, really hard. And when I say work hard, not just the regular working hard that you should be doing, but like I'm pouring my literal blood, sweat, and tears into this position. They had asked me to move, and I got up, I dropped all of my things, and I moved cross country in order to be able to get a new promotion. And after I had done that and I lived in a new city for a while, I didn't have any friends or family here. So I really became obsessed about my work, because what else am I going to do? Because making friends as an adult is really hard. Yeah. And so I really kind of let my priorities go, and I didn't know who I was at that point. What I did know was that my way to cope with the amount of crazy stress that I had at work was to eat. And so I would eat a lot. I would the literal second I came home, I crashed and I watched hours of TV, just not even kind of seeing what was on the television, but just really looking for a way to just be mindless. And so after a year or two of that, I sat down and I looked at myself, and I'm like, I feel sluggish and gross. And I felt that way just because all I did was work, and then literally I just didn't have energy to do anything else. And so the breaking point for me was when somebody outside of work had asked me, oh, you seem really nice. Like, what are your hobbies? And it was a random person too. And I think this was in the store that I had worked at. And I started crying in front of this freaking stranger I didn't know. And I'm like, oh my God, I have lost control of my life. I literally do not know who I am. All I know is that I'm working hard for a company that I don't own. And I'm working hard for somebody else, and I don't know what's important to me.
Yeah.
And so that's when I'm like, I have got to change. Like, I cannot live like this anymore. And so that's when I started, I thought, I'm like, okay, great. Well, all I need to do is work out and eat a few pieces of kale, right? And then I'm good to go.
That's the magic recipe, right?
I mean, right. Like, drink some water, eat some kale, work out every once in a while, then you're good. I really had these like really simplistic views. I guess like I thought I just needed to work, and then I was good. Then I just needed to eat some vegetables, and I was good. So after a while, I started working out, started eating better, and I was like, okay, this is great. This is great. Like, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling better. But then I started realizing, I'm like, well, my thoughts were still running rampant. Like, I had no control over what was happening inside of my own head. I was not confident in what I did, in any decision that I made. Any presentation I would give at work, I would always second guess myself and doubt myself. And I knew that I was not alone in that. I hear so many other people, men and women, but I kind of decided to focus on women, of course, but I knew I wasn't alone. And that was kind of the catalyst to start sharing the information that I had learned over the year of my transformation, I guess you could say, my weight loss journey. But it was so much more than that. It was being able to practice meditation and really being able to connect my mind, body, and soul. Like, I really, truly believe in that. And my whole personality, my whole life shifted. I actually found out who I was. I don't cry anymore when people ask me what my hobbies are, because I actually know what they are. I know more about myself now. I can proudly, I don't wear busy and I don't wear a hard worker as a badge of honor. You know, somebody had once said, if working hard is the most identifiable part about you, then we've got a problem, because everybody has the ability to work hard, but what makes you unique? And I think thinking along those lines, that's what really freaked me out, because I didn't feel like I had any identity. And so, long story really short, I guess you could say, that's when I had started my website, mindfullymonica.com. And then I worked to just kind of share these health and wellness tips that I had learned. And then that just really turned into sharing a journey of confidence. And because I feel like when you are confident in yourself, then you can, if you fix what's on the inside, you can fix what's on the outside. So if you're confident in yourself, you can go get the body you want, but more importantly, you can live the healthy lifestyle you want and actually feel it. So I know that was a really long answer, but.
Oh no, that's great. I love just listening to your story, and it's so real. And I think a lot of people are going to relate to that, especially the kind of cycle you can get stuck in of just working, coming home, and masking your, I don't want to say feelings, but masking your life basically with TV and food.
Yes.
Just like, so you don't actually have to take a look in at yourself and what's going on. It's like you can just switch off and watch TV, and it's like a block for actually dealing with what's going on.
Yes, I cannot agree with you more. I feel like when you just, now don't get me wrong, I still love TV. There's a new season of Queer Eye on, and I'm like, that's on my list of things to do. I'm like, oh my God,
I love it. I love that show so much.
Oh God, me too. I'm so excited. I'm just scared to watch it because I know I'm gonna binge it.
Yeah.
But so I love TV as much as the next person still. I am not above watching some episodes of Queer, like I said. But at the same time, I know that I can come home and be able to be inside of my own head. I can be comfortable being alone. It reminds me of a conversation I had the other day with somebody, and they're talking about ghost stories and stuff. And then we started talking about meditation and things like that. And I'm like, what's really scary? Not ghost stories or anything external, but when you can't be inside of your own head, when you can't stand to be alone, that you have to have like a video, or you have to like be scrolling on Instagram or whatever the case may be. And I love technology, but that has kind of affected a lot of our lives, and it's really hard to learn from it.
But I think actually it's so funny. I was talking to a client about this yesterday, that she didn't feel like doing her workout that day. It's not what she needed for herself. What she needed was to sit down in silence. Her kids had gone to school, and just sit and just be with herself. And that was more beneficial than actually doing her workout, because we go from task to task, and then in between tasks, we're looking at our phone. We've got the TV on. We've got like a podcast in our ears. Mine, preferably.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like, there's always something entertaining our brain, and we forget what it's like to just like sit alone with our thoughts. Like, how do I actually feel about this? Like, how are you? Like, ask yourself how you are. How do I feel? Am I all right?
Right. Or like even just being bored. Like, how often do we allow ourselves to be bored? I remember when I was a teenager and I didn't have a phone and I didn't have anything like that. And when I was bored, I just figured out what to do. Like that's when I actually had hobbies. I figured out what to do. I'm like, oh, I need to go find a friend, and then we're going to go like run around and do this or whatever. Like,
do something creative.
Children have it right sometimes. Like, they may not know everything, but they've got a more active imagination than we do. And maybe we need to kind of spark that.
That's true. So in your journey then, so you realized that you wanted to kind of start changing. Um, so you're already on your transformation. When did you realize that it was going to be more than just like working out and losing weight? When did you realize you need to dig a bit deeper?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, being able to do that, I at the time I was following a lot of other like fitness bloggers and things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
seeing like looking up gym moves and things like that. And then I noticed myself falling into the comparison trap
Mm.
over and over and over, whether it's Instagram or whether it's seeing somebody on TV, or even just talking to somebody, and just I automatically assumed that they had something better than I did. And then I'm like, well, why am I constantly feeling like that?
Yeah.
And then, I wouldn't leave it there. I would go home. And then, when you're kind of anxious or upset or angry at somebody or something, and you make up like a conversation that didn't even happen in your
Yeah.
own mind, and you just like are like, oh well, what if this happened? And then you just like it just
Spiral
spirals.
off. Yeah.
Right. You literally fall down this rabbit hole of self-pity and comparison, and just, sometimes even worse for some
Mm.
people. And so that's when I'm like, great, I'm like, for a second, I feel better about my body, and I feel, good about losing weight. And then I'm like, I look at somebody else and I'm like, well, now I feel fat again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so then I was like, there's got to be more than this too. So that's when I'm like, okay, I notice myself just spiraling out of control every time I look at somebody else. And I like to think that I'm a nice person and I'm super compassionate, but at the same time, I was not proud of what I was doing.
Mm.
Um, and that's when I started, looking at ways to calm anxiety and calm like the self-comparison syndrome and things like that. And that's where I found meditation, which when I started that, I was like, oh my God, I have so many thoughts rolling around in this
Yeah.
thick skull of mine. Like, I'm never going to be able to empty my mind completely. Right. And it wasn't until I started kind of realizing that that was really a myth of meditation. And that's not really the point of meditation. Meditation is more along the lines of just being aware of your thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, I'm like, oh, I was just desperately looking for a way to not be so wrapped up in my own head, not be so wrapped up in the rabbit hole of negative emotions, like be able to have some separation and some space.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's literally just recognizing that your brain has gone off on one and being able to be like, oh, what am I doing? Stop that,
Yes.
flip it, turn it around. And mindfulness and meditation is a huge tool for that, because you have to become mindful of your thoughts as well as
Yes.
becoming mindful of everything else. And as soon as you become mindful of some things, then you start to become mindful of other things and it spreads into your life completely. I have a
Yes.
little section in my course that I run for mindfulness as well, because like, as I said, like you have to be mindful in all areas. So like eating, mindful when you eat. Are you just shoveling food in while you're watching TV?
Right.
Yeah. How does that food make you feel? Like, do you actually feel good? Do you feel bloated? Like, how does it make you feel? But then also that mindful of your thoughts is a big part of it as well, because there's no point, like, this is exactly what you're saying. There's no point losing the weight if you're not going to be happier when you've lost it than you are now.
Yes.
So why not get happy now and then get
Yes.
healthy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it becomes so much less about what you look like, and it's more about just being comfortable in your own skin, to where now I can get on social media and I look at other people who are especially other women who are like being really successful. And I am happy. I'm genuinely happy. I'm like, oh yes, another woman's like killing it. She's
Yeah.
making money, like good for her. Like she looks awesome. I'm genuinely happy for that. And, this may be a different conversation for a different day or not, but like, men obviously go through this, but I do feel like women have been kind of conditioned to have this feeling of there's only one spot at the top,
Yeah.
which is absolutely not true. But, I think part of, I have to look good. I have to be the thinnest. I have to be the prettiest. I have to be the smartest. I have to have all the attention on me, things like that. Like these
Yeah.
types of thoughts run through our mind, because it's like the second that doesn't feel like that's what we're doing, it's like we've been bumped off to the side.
Yeah. We're
And
not good enough. So what's the point of trying?
right. The not enough limiting belief. That's I know that's a whole different conversation, but
Yeah, but that is a huge thing, that women, let's just talk about women here. This is a podcast for women. So like
yes,
women feeling like they're not enough in whatever way it is, or they're not doing enough. Maybe it's that you're a mother and you feel anxious that you're not being enough for your child, or you're at work and you have imposter syndrome and you feel like you're not enough. So it's hard to deliver that presentation. Like I suffer from imposter syndrome a lot as
yes,
well, big time. And I think it comes from, I've always been like that. I've always been like that. I don't know where it comes from, but like it's exacerbated by being online as well, because you're reflecting and looking at yourself every day as well. And that imposter syndrome can really hold you back sometimes. And then
yes,
that's why you have to really deal with the thoughts running through your head of you not being enough, not being worthy, not being
yeah,
good enough. Like, who ever told you that? No one's ever told you that. You've made that up
right.
yourself.
Isn't it just interesting that we are the meanest people we've ever met? Like
Yeah.
us to ourselves, we're the meanest people we've ever met. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying like there are gross trolls out there on the internet, but
Yeah.
you know,
I've had a few
no.
of those.
But if you are being, it's like if you are being a bully to yourself, then I feel like you're going to attract other bullies. Like I really believe in the law of attraction. And
Mm,
I feel like when you are in that mind space of I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, and then like that self-envious space, you are going to only see people who bring that out the worst in you. You're only
yeah.
going to see situations as a bad situation. Like you won't be able to see positive things until you have that mind shift.
You have to flip it. And at the beginning, it's hard. Like you
Yes.
naturally don't want to do this. So you have to work on it. And maybe 20 times a day, you have to stop your thought pattern and flip it round. You know, you have to keep working at it. And for me, it took years. And still sometimes I'll hear a
Same.
thought and I'll be like, oh my God, I'm being so mean to myself.
Right.
And I just flip it around and tell myself something nice. But yeah, you're right. We are so horrible to ourselves. And you'd never say that to anyone else.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
Like
Never.
we all have the decency to be like to be nice to other people. It's like when that kind of thing happens, because that still happens to me. I still have imposter syndrome, and sometimes I'm like, well, Monica, why are you making this podcast episode, or why are you writing that blog post, because you don't have any credentials to back it
Mm,
up. And I feel like a lot of people, like men and women of course, but like a lot of us, I feel like women especially they have like credentialitis. Like you
yeah,
have to
need some
be able,
proof.
like, well,
Need
I have a doctorate degree and things like this. Like I feel like
Mhm.
when you look for outside validation, that's what you think will make you feel better. But I feel like that just is just a pattern that'll never stop if you
Yeah,
don't really trust within you. And of course it's a lesson that you have to keep learning over and over, but at least being aware of it and being able to try and stop the rabbit hole of it, like that's a good way to start for sure.
yeah, definitely. So when you started, then you decided that you needed to flip your mindset, become more mindful, go into meditation. What were literally like your first steps? Like if someone's listening and they're like totally resonating with what you're saying, what were the first things you started to do?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a few different things that I kind of experimented with. And so my first step was to just honestly get a meditation app. So there's a free one I really like called Insight Timer, which is where anybody can kind of upload their meditations.
Mm,
Um, and there's like literally millions of them on there. And then I'm like, okay, well, what do I do when I don't work at the same position that I was anymore. I still work, part-time, but I decided to step down from what was being toxic to me. But at the
mm,
time when I was still, trying to transition into a healthy lifestyle, and I was still working full time and doing the career that I didn't want to do anymore, I was like, okay, well, I'm feeling it's great that I can go home to my app and I can like sit and, the lady will talk me through my meditation. That's great. But it's like, how the hell do I sorry, and can I cuss on here?
yeah, I always
uh,
put explicit.
Good. Okay. So, if you're thinking like, great, that's nice and well and good if I'm at home, but how the hell do I feel better in a situation that stresses me out, like work for
Mm,
me? And that's when I started kind of being able to practice just being able to breathe. And
mhm.
that sounds so obvious as hell. I know it sounds so obvious, but something that I had learned, I think from an app or a different meditation teacher or something, was practicing a mindful minute, especially if you're at work, you're at a place at work where you can't just go off for a 20-minute meditation. Like that's not realistic sometimes. So one of my favorite things to be able to do is be able to set this up, get a timer and set it for a minute. And in that minute, just breathe deeply, breathe equal and deep breaths, and count the amount of breaths that it takes to a minute. So for me, that was about 15 complete breaths. So like complete full breath, and just make sure they're even. And so for me, I know when I'm having a panic attack come on because I'm like triggered at work or something like that, I know I just need to go, I literally run to the bathroom, like run wherever, run to the bathroom, like go to a janitor's closet, like, you know, wherever you can, and just take these same deep breaths. For me, like I said, it was 15 minutes or 15 minutes, 15 breaths. And that was just my mindful minute. And that was a way for me to, one, count. So that way I have something to focus my mind on, because let's say you get into an argument with a coworker, you know, you spiral out and you have these fake conversations in your head of like, oh, I wish I said this. And, oh, it would have been smarter if I said this, and things like that. So when you're falling down the rabbit hole of that, that's when you can go and take your mindful minute, and you have something like count your breaths, and then just take as many mindful minutes as you need. And I feel like that's just a great like panic SOS meditation.
Yeah, I had one of my first guests on this podcast, Robin Cadell. She was dealing with PTSD, and she used to say that she would go into the bathroom, she would put her hand on her chest and just breathe and like reconnect. And it's that reconnection to yourself, away from like your brain, your ego, and all the thoughts, patterns, and all that going on, and just like zoning back in again. I think it's really important, and we forget that, because how many times, if you've got a spare minute, would you just pick up your phone and aimlessly scroll through Facebook, Instagram? We actually, like, I can honestly say I haven't done that in ages, just sat and just reconnected with myself. You honestly forget. So it's almost worth setting a little reminder, if you're not doing it like because of a situation, but setting a reminder on your phone to have some mindfulness time, or do your meditation, or put it into your morning routine or evening routine or something, so that you actually do make it part of your lifestyle, if that's what you need. And to be honest, it's going to benefit most people anyway.
And you don't need to, like, sometimes I feel like people will hear the word meditation and they think of all of these people that travel to Indonesia and do like an hour-long meditation and things like that. And that's great and all, you know, and a lot of times it's recommended you meditate 20 minutes in the morning and at night. And it's like, that's a little overwhelming for most people.
It's massively overwhelming if you're new to it.
And then you have anxiety around meditating, and that's just the opposite of the effect that you want. So I mean, even taking like a minute just to, you know, reconnect yourself at the top of every hour, or once every 3 hours or something, like for a minute, that's even a good meditation practice.
Yeah, especially if it's stressful at work, massively.
Yeah.
So obviously your journey all started with weight loss and everything. And where are you at now on your journey then? Are you in like a maintenance mode with your weight loss, or how are you feeling?
Yeah. I'd say that's definitely kind of where I'm at right now. You know, I was never super obsessed about the weight loss, like the pounds number, because I knew I've seen so many people be obsessed about that number. It just saddened me, like from even well before I started this journey. I knew I never wanted to be like that. And I'm 5'11", so I'm super tall. And so I weigh more naturally than a lot of people do anyway, because I'm tall, I have to weigh more than people. And so I never looked at that. And so for me, I just kept going until I started feeling good. I barely took measurement. I did when I first started, just to kind of see a little bit of transformation. But yeah, now it's just more about maintenance, and it's more about, I guess you can say I more intuitively eat. Like once you get over the first hurdle, because the first hurdle of like changing your nutrition sucks. Like,
it's overwhelming. You're hungry.
And all you want to do is just eat the freaking cookie. Like that's all you want to do. Like, right. All you want to do is eat the cookie. And eat the 15 others in the sleeve.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, once you get to a point to where you do get over that hurdle of like, okay, I haven't had it for a while, I'll have one, and then eat. I don't know. I personally, I feel like it does get easier. Like,
It
for
does
me,
get
like
easier.
when I just quit milk or dairy, for example, I was such a cheesehead. I loved like mountains of like shredded cheese on everything because I don't know. I guess that was just the best way to have condiments on something for me. But then after a while, I gave that up. And now, like, I can't eat that much cheese. Like, my body, like, I can feel it dragging my body down and my energy goes down. I feel
Yeah.
like once you kind of see how nutrition really affects your lifestyle, you'll
Yeah.
be addicted to eating healthy. Because
Yes.
once you eat that crap food that you used to, you're like,
Oh,
ugh,
feel
now I don't have
rubbish.
energy. You'll be
Yeah.
addicted to energy.
I so love that you said that, because it is hard at the beginning, and anyone who's working with me now or has worked with me in the past, it's tough. When we first start working together, it's tough, and it's like you'll fight it because it's much easier to stick to your old ways. It's the easy way to
Yes.
that. But
Yeah.
once you tap in and you realize how good you feel when you eat well, and then you constantly eat like that for a while because your body actually, as you said, craves those foods, then you can flip into intuitive eating without even realizing. Like,
Absolutely.
you will just naturally know what to cook, what to eat, what your body craves, when you can have like a piece of cake, because you can feel the balance and you don't
Yeah.
even have to think about it, but you have to go through that sucky period. And it doesn't have to suck majorly, but it is, any change is hard. Any
Yeah.
change is hard. And it's kind of like you have to push through. But once you get through, it's so easy and wonderful. And then you really don't care about the scales because you feel the other benefits of weight loss and feeling healthy. And it's just so rewarding.
Oh, I 100% agree. I feel like, I don't restrict myself in any way. Like, I am a vegetarian, but that's not it is because of health, but it's for other reasons as well. But as far as like cheese and dairy and things like that, if I go to a restaurant and there is like an awesome cake, or there's some sort of like exotic cheese or something that I want to try, I'm not going to say no, because I'm like, oh,
No,
well, that'll add 5 pounds. Like, I'm not going to do that,
because you
because
know
I
now that won't add 5 pounds.
Yes, yes. And I feel like when you actually have those sweet indulgences and you actually indulge a little bit, you are more grateful for it. Like, the other day I had a cookie and I ate it I hadn't had it in a while, and I ate it so slowly, and I'm like, oh God, that was so filling and it was really good. And I was grateful for the cookie. I never thought
Yeah.
I would be, because I could just eat a cookie whenever the hell I wanted to.
Yeah.
Um, but now it's like I'm almost more satisfied
Yeah.
instead of just blindly eating it because that's what I thought comforted me.
Yeah, exactly. And because you are not having it constantly all the time, when you do, the taste is so much more like prevalent. Like,
Oh my God.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. I kind of joked on kale a little bit, which now I've grown to love it. But, after eating so much healthy food, when you do indulge, you're just like, yes, this even tastes better than I remember.
Yeah. But it's funny that like how your palate changes, and like how you thought you would never like vegetables, and then, you can incorporate things into your life. Like, you can change. Like, I tell people to like make a list of the reasons they think they can't change.
Yeah.
Because most of them are usually a load of rubbish. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, I don't like vegetables. I'm like, all right, let's delve a bit deeper into this. Like, what
Right.
vegetables can you tolerate? And there's usually a few in there. And then you start to try some in a smoothie, blend it in, and then eventually
Yes.
you just add in a few more. And it's like what you do with a child. Like, you eventually add things into your palate, and then you feel
Right.
so energized and so good, and your skin looks better and your hair looks better, that it's like, oh, maybe I can eat a vegetable now and again.
Oh my God, right. Like, you'll be addicted to how, like I said, dropping dairy and just eating more vegetables, like in green, and especially like dark leafy greens. I
Yeah.
can feel it in my face. And drinking more water, like, oh my God, praise water.
I know.
Seriously.
Yeah.
When you do things like that, like, yeah, exactly like what you said, your skin clears up, you have more energy. And then once you get over that initial hurdle, you won't want to go back. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
there'll be hills and valleys in anything in life, but you'll generally stick to it, and you'll make the decision that you want to do this. And it's a lot of it is a mindset shift.
yeah,
It's just, I think a lot of it's just not believing in ourselves, and that kind of circles back to not being enough, not being good enough or smart enough. It's like, you are good enough to do this. You are good enough to make a change. You are smart enough to stick with it. You have the willpower to do this. You have got to believe in yourself, because if you don't, then you will. If you're already telling yourself you won't, then you won't. That's just
yeah,
it.
massively. It's all in the mindset. And people often just feel like I fail at everything, so I'm probably going to fail at this. Just
Then
like
you've already failed. Then
you've written it down, like, yeah. So do you have any tips right now from something from your website or something from your blog or whatever that's really going to give people a little kickstart in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, like I talk about a lot of different tips on my website. I just, one that comes recently to mind is kind of overcoming anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I made a post about that, and then inspired a kind of 7-day challenge that I made up for my tribe. But, something for me, I noticed there was the health and wellness aspect, and that was easier for me to face, but the being inside of my own head was the hardest. And a lot of that was the anxiety about the future. And so I realized that, I guess you can say some tips that I have for if you are feeling that panic or that anxiety coming on is, one, to actually take some time and really envision the worst that can happen. I know that sounds really crazy, but when you can actually see the very worst thing that you think is going to happen. So like, I'm not going to get this promotion at work. And so, now I'm not going to be able to make the money to retire and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to end up on the street and things like that. Don't go too long, but just take 5 minutes and actually visualize that. So you're not just wondering about what that looks like. Then you can, for every kind of point that you made, I'm going to be homeless and I'm going to be poor and blah, 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 and whatever, you can I'd say, write all of that stuff down. And for each bullet point of like the worst things that happen, make 2 action plans around that. So, like I said, for if you're not getting the promotion at work, what are 2 things that you can do now to plan for that? Okay. So I can, I can stop getting the latte, my morning latte, and then save that money for the next year. And then I'll have like a good chunk in the bank. You see where I'm going with that? Mm-hmm. So just being able to kind of like acknowledge the worst that can happen, because usually what actually does happen is not as bad as your imagination's making it out to be, really. And just being able to know, like, even if this horrible thing does happen, taking that time to take a breath and be like, I've already made a plan around it. Like I said, each kind of bad scenario that you're wasting time picturing, right? You can have 2 action plans around that. So that way you have a full arsenal of things that you can do right now to be able to combat this worst situation that probably won't happen anyway. And then you just feel for me, it feels so much calmer knowing that. I think anxiety a lot of it comes up, just normal anxiety comes up when we feel powerless. And the way to combat feeling powerless is to have a plan.
Yeah, you need to take control. That's always what you need to do. Whenever you feel anxious, it's because you need to take control of something.
Yes.
You need to take control of the situation. Oh, well, Monica, it's been amazing chatting to you, getting to know your story and your tips and everything. If anyone wants to find you online, where can they head to?
Yeah. You can find me. I mostly hang out on Instagram at Mindfully Monica, and then come on over to my website. I can send you a link for the show notes, but you can get my 7-day mind, body, and soul challenge and all of my tips and good stuff about mind, body, and soul at mindfullymonica.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and have a great day. And thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.